Us we, 8 plus 3, 2 then 7, Shrimati, Kali, UYT, Mutmawu, Shri Chandi, Peace Queen, heaven in the green, Serpentine back to spiraling, Peace King back to rhyming, Love Ting back to finding who we be morphologically, unique cosmologically, sun, moon, astrologically, C6 topologically, alchemical, baseline seminal, subliminal, reach thy pinnacle, ascendable, fifth dimensional, unquenchable, indispensable. Breath, ride on the breath. All that energy rides on the breath. Death to the ego, fear to the left. Free from material, now what's left?
I'm in the Bible on this one. Matthew 10, verse 16. Behold, I send you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves. Be ye therefore wise as serpents, and harmless as doves. Okay. It said, be ye therefore wise as serpents and harmless as doves. See, the serpent represents wisdom. Us being Western civilization, we're kind of out of touch with culture and everything. And in every culture besides ours, everybody knows that the serpent is wisdom. And but in our culture, we scared of the snake. But that's what they want you to do. They don't want you. They want you to be scared of wisdom. They don't want you to be free thinkers. But yeah, the serpent is wisdom. Matthew 10, verse 16. Behold, I send you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves. Be ye therefore wise as serpents and harmless as doves. Okay. Another way we finna show, we going to Moses now. Exodus 7. In Exodus 7, verse 8. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying unto Aaron, when Pharaoh shall speak unto you, saying, show a miracle for you, that thou shalt say unto Aaron, take thy rod and cast it before Pharaoh, and it shall become a serpent. And Moses and Aaron went unto Pharaoh and did as the Lord had commanded, and Aaron cast down his rod before Pharaoh and before his servants, and it became a serpent. Then Pharaoh also called the wise men and the sorcerers, now the magicians of Egypt. They also did in like manner with their enchantments. For they cast down every man his rod, and they became serpents. But Aaron's rod swallowed up their rods. See, what this means is that, and see, like I said in the title, the serpent is wisdom. See, this was a metaphor. You see what I'm saying? This is alchemy. This is magic. This is making you see something that's not really there. See, what happened was Pharaoh brought all his wise men and philosophers and magicians, and the wisdom of Moses and Aaron was greater than their wisdom. That's what it means when it says that he threw down his rod, then it turned into to a snake. Then they threw down their rod, and their rod turned to a snake. See, both of them got wisdom. But the greater wisdom swallowed up the lesser wisdom. That's why it said you should be ye wise as serpents.
live, bro. You recording? Oh, come here, bring that shit close. Let me see. Almost out of breath. That right there, for all my Nagas, is that serpent breath kundalini meditation. That's that Naga serpent. A little history about that Naga serpent. That right there is the sound that the serpent makes to me in terms of my flute. But this is what it really sounds like. That shit right there felt real good. For all you scientific minded people, that right there corresponds to the 5 or 6 healing sounds of the Taoists. This resonates with the liver, and it releases everything, all the repressed and held emotions within inside of the liver. So just going like that helps release anger, because you know that your liver holds in anger. Also resonates with the serpent, and the serpent resonates with currency. So you raising that energy up every time you hit. That's also like saying Isis, and we know that Isis is the subconscious mind, or All-Set. All-Set is the subconscious mind, which is the storehouse of all your jewelry, all your jewels, all your wisdom and understanding is locked within inside of your subconscious mind. So you notice that the serpent charmers, they got the flute like me, and they raise that serpent out of that bin, and it comes up, you know, because you have to tame your serpent. You have to lift your serpent energy up and raise it, and know how to raise it. Also, when a Muslim says a salah, raising the salah is talking about being worshipful or worshiping or praising. So once again, you raising that energy to the heavens, you know. And just to end off, raising your energy to heaven, or bringing hell all the way up to heaven, which is what we're doing, also sounds like tss, very simply, because if I light a match and throw it in some water, that's all you're gonna hear. Tss. It's the same sound you're gonna hear right there. So with that said,
peace, peace, peace. Shalom, shalom. Shalom. Assalamu alaikum. And welcome to another day to labor in the vineyard of the Most High with your brother. Another day to get in the word, to see what the Most High got to serve. And what we gonna eat on today? We gonna get Father confirmation that we was the people in ancient India. Alright? This gonna help somebody bridge that gap that still might got that doubt or unbelief that we were the original Hindus and that their teachings is our teachings. So let's bridge that gap. Get a little more information. We're gonna go to the Children of Mu by James Churchward. The Children of Mu. Mu, another name for Lemuria, the island that disappeared along with Atlantis due to our wickedness. So we're going to start in chapter 11, called India. It was India who stood foremost for thousands of years, holding together and carrying on the earth's first great civilization after the destruction of the motherland. Other nations held the civilization for a time, but all except India soon began to fall back and many disappeared. It was India that stood foremost in religion, philosophy, astronomy, sciences, music, art, and medicine from the time of the destruction of the motherland down to about 500 BC. No other nation could stand as her rival or compete with her in all branches of knowledge. The world generally knows nothing of this. Historians have utterly failed to show and to credit India with the civilization of ancient date. Yet the Akkadians, Sumerians, Babylonians, and Upper Egyptians were her offspring. The world will have us to believe that Egypt is just the cradle of all things. But it's not true. We already know about the ancient Americas, Atlantis, Mu. But on this side, India was the first area that was popping, that came up. Before Egypt, it was India. That's why even the Gentiles will say the oldest scriptures in the world is the Vedas that come from India. And like you see right here, brother just told us, they was the foremost in religion, philosophy, astronomy, science, music, art, and medicine. From the time of the destruction of the motherland down to about 500 years before Christ. And all this information has been hidden. Alright? We have only to examine the western shores of India to prove the extreme age of her civilization. For here, lying on the bed of the Indian Ocean, a few miles from the present shoreline, are to be seen beneath the waters remains of great imposing structures. History does not relate this submergence, yet here it is. An incontrovertible fact that in bygone times, India enjoyed a high civilization. The loss of the mother tongue in the motherland's form of writing was the result of the Aryan domination. From the time the Aryans controlled the civilization of India, it has gradually gone down to where it was found 200 years ago. It fell from the highest to almost the lowest rung in the ladder. As a matter of fact, India is a modern name for the peninsula. It has only been called India for about 2,300 to 2,400 years. What the ancient name of the Hindu peninsula was, or whether there was a name embodying the whole of the peninsula, I do not know. In all the ancient records which I have read, the Naga Empire, the Maharata Kingdom, and the Maharata was another name for the Nagas later in time. And Dravida are only mentioned. The name India came out of the Greek. The Greeks transformed the name first to Indu, afterwards to Hindu. Finally, the river became known as the Indus, and the people as Hindus and Indians. Alright, the Indians, they became known as Indians. Alright. The first people in India were Mayas. The first people in India were the Mayas, the Mayans, the Mayans. And we know from all of the information that's came back to us that that was us. Alright? The Mayans. The first people in India were Mayas who had left the motherland. They first went to Burma and there became known as the Nagas. From Burma, they established themselves in the Deccan, India, and in India subsequently became known as the Danavas. The Mayas were mighty navigators whose ships passed from the eastern to the western oceans and from the southern to the northern seas in the ages so remote that the sun had not yet risen above the horizon. That being learned architects, they built great cities and palaces. This shows the exceedingly high civilization of the Hindus at this very remote date. So clearly, the Hindus were the Mayans who were the Nagas, the same people. The Maya adepts, the Nakals, or Holy Brothers, started from the land of their birth in the east as missionaries of the religion and learning of the motherland. They first went to Burma, where they taught the Nagas. From Burma, they established themselves in the Deccan, India, from whence they carried their religion and learning to the colonies of Babylonia and Egypt. While modern Hindu historians look upon the Ramayana and some other Hindu writings as myths, the Hindus themselves do not. Alright, and if you get into some of these writings, the things they doing is them things you see on some of these TV shows or whatnot. Things you see off Harry Potter and different things. The abilities that we had. Alright? The same abilities that you be seeing on some of these shows. If you read some of these old Hindu writings, people think that a lot of that stuff is myths. But it's abilities that we once had. And that's what the brother about to say. While modern Hindu historians look upon the Ramayana and some other Hindu writings as myths, the Hindus themselves do not. They know better. So do I. We know their origin and from what they were taken. They are not myths. They are histories written in the usual style of their time. They are, generally speaking, extremely symbolical, and because historians have failed to understand these symbolical writings, they have classified them as myths. Wheeler, on the history of India, says the Mayas became known in after times as Nagas and Danavas. Wheeler might have been more explicit and have said the Mayas came to India as Nagas and afterwards became known as the Navas. The traditions of the Nagas are obscure in the extreme. They point, however, to an ancient Maya or Naga empire in the Deccan, where the modern city of Nagpur stands. The traditions of the Nagas are not so very obscure. The Nagas formed the first Hindu empire. The Nagas, them niggas, formed the first Hindu empire. Their first king was called Rama. Alright, let's keep going. The Brahmins, it is well known, borrowed their system of cosmogony and acquired the knowledge of astronomy as well as other sciences of civilization from the highly civilized Nagas, whom afterwards they relentlessly persecuted. So the Brahmins came in just like the Aryans, the same way the Gentiles did us in other areas. They came in, retrieved our information, and turned against us. Alright? The Brahmins, it is well known, borrowed their system of cosmogony and acquired the knowledge of astronomy as well as all other sciences of civilization from the highly civilized Nagas, whom afterwards they relentlessly persecuted. Here it is plainly seen that the Brahmins were responsible for dragging India down from her foremost place among nations. It is here illustrated that when the wisdom and teachings of the Nagas were withdrawn, the Brahmins at once commenced a downward fall in the sciences, giving evidence that is incontrovertible that the persecution and driving out of the Naga scientists, the teachers of the Brahmins, was the death knell to India's supremacy in the sciences and her high position among nations. When the Nagas could stand the persecution no longer, those who could took their books and records and went into the mountains on the north, settling in monasteries on the southern slope of the Himalayas. So the Nagas who was able to escape just took their things and left into the mountains to avoid the persecutions that was going on to our people. It is clearly and distinctly shown that the civilization of India ranked among the foremost in the world. Thousands and tens of thousands of years ago, tens of thousands of years before the Aryans made a settlement in India. It clearly and distinctly shows that the Aryans were inferior in civilization, arts, and sciences to the highly civilized Nagas, into whose country they entered. It is clearly and distinctly shown that the Aryans obtained their civilization and what arts and sciences they knew from the Nagas. The Brahmin priesthood first learned what they could and then persecuted the Nagas to extinction. The Brahmin priesthood first learned what they could. The same way when the Gentiles came over here to the Americas and found us, they learned what they could, and then it was all over. The Brahmin priesthood first learned what they could, and then persecuted the Nagas to extinction. Alright, so hopefully this give another piece of the puzzle for us to run with, to see that all of that ancient Hindu teachings, that was all our stuff. The teachings of Krishna, that's why they had what he looked like. This was all our stuff. So this is just further confirmation for us to get the truth that's been hidden about our history. Alright?
Origins of the word directly relate to the female goddess, her queenhood, the goddesshood, the goddess aspect. It is not something derogatory. Anytime you use the word it is held in the highest, most sacred aspect. Snake has always been the symbol of fertility, rebirth, and renewal. Shedding of the old skin of the old self and being reborn into your new skin. The snake emerges from its den or its dark, dank hole in the ground. The underworld. All life, everything in nature and everything in this universe emerges from the darkness, aka the black hole, which is a vaginal innuendo. As far as physics is concerned, this is nothing other than simply sexual innuendo regarding the physics of things like black holes, the anatomy of as above, so below, the belt. We're referring to the underworld, the abyss, the dark hole, the primordial waters of the goddess. This is why the snake represents sex and fertility, because it enters in and out of the hole, of the nether regions, where it resides, in the ground, as well as in anatomy. The male serpent resides in the female hole, the female cave. Darkness represents or represents the feminine nature, because the goddess is negative in nature, and negative not as in bad, it's just simply negative polarity, as in two polarities, and the female is the negative aspect of the negative polarity, where the male is the positive. Electricity, you have an outlet, a male and a female outlet. The male deposits the inserts into the female outlet. Thus, her organs are inward. Her energy contracts. Her sexual energy is contracting. It is centripetal, meaning it sucks within, it sucks into. This is directly relating to physics and magnetism. In physics, you have centripetal convergence and centrifugal divergent forces, two forces of nature. There is expansion and contraction. Everything in nature breathes in and out in an ebb and flow. So the female energy, her essence is magnetic, as in Magdalene, as in magic. The root word of mag being female, magnetic. Her essence is water. It's cool, wet, moist, which is why she's associated with the cave, the caverns, the dark hole that leads to the underworld, to the abyss, into the ground where caves go. This is a segment from Sonia Bonacci. From the earliest conception of man, the sacred egg represented the origin of life and the secret of being. In the ancient Greek Orphic tradition, it was known that the universe originated from within the silver cosmic Orphic egg. This particular egg is depicted with a serpent coiled around it, much in the same way that DNA is tightly coiled around the histone molecules called the chromatin within the chromosomes of a human somatic cell. As the image illustrates, the core of a nucleosome consists of 8 protein molecules, called histones. This 8 bead-on-bead-like structure is the exact same geometry as the star tetrahedron known as the Merkaba, also the seed of life, known as the Star of David, in 2-dimensional form of the same geometry, which is the cube.